Hello and welcome to World of Business, your weekly update into trending news and latest developments on the stock markets. It's also on this show we herald unsung but thriving business entrepreneurs. My name is Tafara Bendaguta. Now, recently the 66th edition of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair 2026 was held in Bulawayo from the 20th to the 25th of April under the theme Connected Economies, Competitive Industries. Now, on this episode, we want to focus on the post-analysis of these outcomes, examining how these engagements are expected to translate into real economic output. Now, but before that, we're going to head straight into the exchange rates as they are of recently. The Zimbabwe gold to the United States dollar interbank rate was at 25.19 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at 34.10 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the euro interbank rate was at 29.54 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the South African rand interbank rate was at 0.65 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Botswana pula interbank rate was at 1.87 ZiG. And now we give you the commodity prices as they are of recently. Gold per ounce traded at $4,696 after it went down by 0.94 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $75.80 after it went down by 1.49 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $608.75 after it went down by 0.02 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $1,993 after it went down by 1.19 percentage points. And that's it for the first segment of World of Business. Do stay tuned. We've got more to unpack only on World of Business, exclusive to ZBC. Now, welcome back to the second segment of World of Business. Now, on this episode, we're focusing on the 66th edition of the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair 2026, which was held from the 20th to the 25th of April under the theme Connected Economies, Competitive Industries. Now, this brought together local and international businesses across key sectors, generating strong trade activity, partnerships, and investment prospects. And today, we focus on a post-analysis of its outcomes, examining how these engagements are expected to translate into real economic impact. Now, to help us unpack all of this, we're joined on the show by Mr. Titus Mukove, a renowned economist. Mr. Titus, how are you today, and welcome to the show?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. Now, let's just jump straight into it. With over 600 million United States dollars in business transactions and lead recorded, what sectors are expected to drive the most immediate economic impact?
I think the sectors that are going to drive the immediate economic impact are mainly mining, agriculture, manufacturing, and we've also seen huge interest in terms of ICT, innovation and development. So those are the main sectors. In terms of mining, we've seen participants even from Europe, the Sandvik and other participants. In terms of agriculture, we saw FAO being very active during International Trade Fair, where they were actually pushing for the agriculture value chain development and trade between Mozambique so that they facilitate the movement of sesame, macadamia, tomatoes and other agro-processes through the Beira corridor. We've also seen leads in terms of manufacturing and construction as well, where a term sheet was actually finalized in terms of building a shopping center in the fair itself. So those are mainly going to be the sectors that are going to have the major impact. But the good thing is that we have seen other sectors other than the traditional mining, manufacturing, and agriculture sector, other sectors actually now showing lots of intent and lots of leads that were done in other sectors, like the ICT itself, like I've indicated.
Let's just go a bit deeper into it. The ICT, you're saying it's a growing sector that would actually expected to drive the most immediate economic impact. How so, would you suggest?
The ICT sector is actually critical. Now manufacturing is computer aided. That is actually critical in terms of managing the cost of production itself. ICT driven production, you find that the cost of per unit of manufacturing things significantly reduced, assisted by AI. So that's where the world is going in terms of making sure that there is that efficiency in terms of the utilization of resources. We are a country that is blessed with abundance of resources, but what we need to do is to look now into the value chain, the whole supply chain, so that we enhance our own manufacturing sector. Yes, leads were there in terms of energy, in terms of mining, but that now needs to be driven and supported by investment in ICT, so that our production becomes competitive at the international market.
Now, I'm curious, how likely are the memoranda of understanding and business leads generated at ZITF 2026 to translate into bankable investments and tangible projects?
We have seen a growth in terms of the leads. Last year alone, just over 300 million were done, and this year alone it doubled to 600 million, like you said. And last year the conversion was around 18 million of the leads that were there in 2025, and we expect to see a further growth in terms of turning them into bankable agreements, not just MOUs. But we are moving in the right direction. The fact that there is growth in terms of the leads, they're doubling within a year, it's an indication that
it's a serious indication.
Yes, it's a serious indication that investors, business partners, international players are now taking the country serious in terms of being an economy that is growing, being an investment haven that we are becoming. So I'm quite certain that the turnover rate in terms of the leads to actual business is actually going to grow this year.
Okay. Now I'm curious, what does the strong presence of local and international private sector players signal about investor confidence and market opportunities in Zimbabwe?
Yes, it's quite important that we are seeing growth in terms of international exhibitors.
Even the EU, I'm sure they were present.
Even EU were present. Last year we had about 28 countries, international, other countries that participated at ZITF. This year it grew to about 31 countries, if I'm not mistaken. A number of foreign participants were there, if I'm not mistaken, about 49, which is quite critical. It's showing actually a growth. And mind you, there was oversubscription for space at ZITF, 104. So it was actually oversubscribed. So it's an indication that the economy is moving in the right direction. The re-engagement and engagement policy is actually now bearing dividends. So that is an indication of the direction that we're taking in an economy. And remember, we're now under the National Development Strategy too.
Indeed.
So the ZITF was actually one of the platforms that we are actually pushing and putting, so that we make sure that we get the outcomes that we desire under the National Development Strategy too. So having as a business fair like ZITF being oversubscribed, it means we are doing well as a country. And I also want to commend ZIDA, which had a business lounge there that was actually facilitating business engagement.
Was it the first time they had a business lounge?
They've always been participating, but this year the business lounge, they scaled it up.
Okay.
Yes, and they did very well in terms of facilitating B2B conversations. So it's actually an indication that as an economy and as the trade fair itself is actually doing well in engaging the private sector. So, and remember, what we need at the end of the day is we need to have an economy that is private sector driven.
Yes.
So this platform actually created an environment where the private sector participated well, and I'm quite encouraged with the level of participation of the private sector.
Okay. Still on the same thoughts, in what ways did this year's fair advance Zimbabwe's industrialization agenda, particularly in manufacturing, mining, and agriculture value chains?
I think it did well in terms of supporting the country's industrialization agenda. You rightly pointed out mining. A lot of discussions were done in terms of the mining. In terms of manufacturing, lots of discussions were done. In terms of agriculture, like I said, the FAO was actually pushing on the issue, the agenda of facilitating trade through the Beira corridor. There is a policy or an agreement that is there between Zimbabwe and Mozambique to facilitate agriculture value chains. So all of that was actually touched on. Like I mentioned before, EU was there with the international partners and players that are very critical in terms of mining. The Senvic institution was actually there participating. So all the sectors that are critical in terms of the industrial agenda or the industrial policy were actually we saw quite effective and efficient discussions and MOUs being signed. And that is the reason why we had a jump from leads of around 300,000 to 600,000. Which is quite good for the industrial industrial policy, for the country.
Now I'm curious, what is the level of international participation and partnerships at ZITF 2026 indicate about Zimbabwe's evolving role in regional and global trade networks?
All right. So remember, part of the theme for this year was economic integrations, which is in line with Africa Continental Free Trade Area. That's the direction that we are moving as a continent. So it was quite important that this ZITF actually create such a platform so that we become an important player, not just a participant, but an important player when it comes to Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So that was actually critical. That was the major take that I take in terms of creating regional in the international lines of business.
All right. All right, Mr. Titus, thank you a lot for that informative feedback from you as to the post-analysis of the ZITF. All right. Now, that's it for this segment of World of Business. We'll be right back after this. Don't go nowhere. Final segment of World of Business, and it's on this segment that we put the focus on our Entrepreneur of the Week. Now, in support of the government's National Development Strategy agenda, this week the World of Business spoke to Daniel Rungani, a local youthful entrepreneur majoring in livestock production. Now, let's get more from our field reporter. Cellah, over to you.
Welcome to the final segment of this week's edition of World of Business, where we have come all the way to Goromonzi to witness the agricultural activities that are being done by one young man, Mr. Daniel Rungani. Now, youth-led agribusiness is a key pillar under Zimbabwe's National Development Strategy agenda, driving employment, food security and economic growth. Against this background, we're going to speak to one young man, Mr. Daniel Rungani, who is going to walk us through his journey to agribusiness as well as agricultural entrepreneurship. Mr. Rungani, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so briefly, maybe just tell us about Goromonzi and doing agriculture in this place. How has it been so far, your experience?
So farming is basically fun the side. We get enough water and it's the best area to do either your crops or your animals. So it's exciting to be in Goromonzi and farming here.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so last year we witnessed the rolling out or the launch of the National Development Strategy 2 on the 17th of November 2025, and it deliberately includes and emphasizes on youth agribusiness being a key pillar, and also youth entrepreneurship under the agricultural sector being so crucial. What are your sentiments towards that?
I really want to thank the President for giving us the opportunity to start even farming, and it's also a huge responsibility on our part, because it's an opportunity for us to prove that we as farmers can create employment, and we have to feed the national grid. And for you to have happy citizens, you need to have citizens that are not hungry, that are well fed. So it's now a huge responsibility on our part to employ more people and to put in more work so that we do not embarrass our country or even our president for having so much confidence in the youth.
Okay, yeah, the future is definitely in the right hands.
Sure.
But maybe, how old are you?
I'm 26.
26.
Yes.
What motivated you to venture into agriculture? Has it always been something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was a circumstance because, to be honest, I was never a person. I grew up on a farm, but I wasn't really interested, such that even when I was in school, I didn't even do agriculture as a practical. But soon after A-level, you can't keep asking your parents that you need data or you need for them to buy your phone. Then you start looking at low-hanging fruits, and you're like, but we also have land. I can start doing broilers, I can do pigs, I can even do a small garden. So the passion then grew on me. One of the most fulfilling things about agriculture is animal husbandry, to be specific. I can come back from town, and if the pigs, even they sense my smell, they'll start crying, and they can even tell that, my pigs are not well fed today. So it's that responsibility that comes onto me, so that I feel like, no, I have to continue and pursue and grow. Okay, this year is pasture-raised pigs. We also do commercial pigs. Those are the ones we do farrow to finish, and those are the ones we get income from. These ones we are studying them out. It's a pilot project that we wanna see how they grow and how they adapt to the environment, and also how we are going to sell them as organic food. We want to sell it as organic meat. So yeah, so then we also have broilers. At any one time we have between 1,500 to 2,000 broilers. Then on the commercial side, the commercial pigs, we have 140 porkers at any one time.
Clearly, you've been very successful in what you're doing here. How have the government policies supported all of these projects that you're doing? How have the policies made it possible for this environment to be conducive for all these projects that you're doing?
Yeah, the very reason that we are here and we are operating on this farm, it was because of the government via the land reform program. So we have benefited a lot from the government, from getting implements, even the opportunities to access to banks, where long ago, even when my dad was operating, it was very hard for them to get loans. But now, via the Land Tenure Act, we are working on getting those title deeds, and with those, we are sure that we can even expand and have ownership as black people and as young Zimbabweans.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of support would you need further from the government in order for you to employ many people and also to continue doing different kinds of projects under the National Development Strategy too?
I think we need speed on capital. That's one thing that, as farmers, we might need a capital for around 6 to 12 months. So the loan repayments might be harder for every month payment. So we need a bit more time. And even when you apply for it, the initialization from applying the loan and for you to getting it, it has to be shorter so that we operate quickly. And these are perishable, so we need to make sure that we produce more and push volumes. That's how we make money and expand.
Daniel, you have spoken at length about the different projects that you're doing. You've mentioned the piggery, you've mentioned the broilers, you've also talked about the goats. Can you walk us through maybe the value chain? Where do you start from and how does it get to be an end product and to which end user?
So for the pigs, we have 20 sow units. For that 20 sow unit, at any one time, we have minimum of 33 porkers that will be pushing to the market. So we used to do B2B, business to business, but there were slow returns. So we started processing our meat by ourselves. We started slaughtering, then we package into each specific part, be it the loin, the shoulder, the ribs. We package it into specific packets in 5 kgs. Then we did the same for the broilers. We dress them, then we cut them into different various cuts that we then push to the market. So now we are pushing direct to the consumer. So we have more of a subscription model that every month we have clients who give us money upfront, and then at the end until the end of the month we supply them meat. So it gives us some cash flow to work around with.
You employing people, creating an opportunity that many people have benefited from. How does this reflect the government's vision for youth entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's motivating even for young people to get into farming because there's huge potential when it comes to employment. This is just a small operation. I know some young farmers who are doing much more bigger things, and they are employing more families can feed from that enterprise. And also, for instance, if we have 100 young farmers who employ 10 people, that means we might have at any one time we have 1,000 workers. So that adds into that removes from the government's bill, and then it adds into the country's GDP. And yeah.
You can agree with me that there are a lot of young people that are participating in agricultural activities.
Yes.
So
yes.
For the sake of that young person, we're still wondering if they should tap into the agricultural sector. What exactly do they need? Do they need to have connections? Do they need to have come from a background where they were taught farming, or they can just start from somewhere? What would you like to say?
I would encourage young Zimbabweans, especially those who want to get into farming, they should join clubs which do agriculture. You need to have sort of a mentor who's directly ahead of you, so they have been where you want to go. So if you ask them, they will tell you, if you want to start with pigs, start with 5 pigs. Don't go for 10 or go for 5 or go for less than 5. You need to start with 5 so that you get your intervals synchronizing as soon as you can. So that type of information, you don't get it in someone who's not doing it. You might get on YouTube or get information from WhatsApp or whatever, but you need to have someone you'll be talking to every day, updating them that I've done this, I've done that. So join clubs, then you need to have mentors, network more, because if you're not networking, then in agriculture you won't be working really. It will be very hard for you. People will wait to start until they get capital, but there will never be enough capital to start. So you need to start from somewhere, and as you go, you document your process with the social media and all the platforms that we have. Okay, thank you so much for the insightful conversation that we had with you. And we sincerely hope to come for the future programs that you're going to be doing. We've come to the end of this week's segment of our Entrepreneur of the Week, and it has clearly been highlighted that NDS2 places agriculture is a strategic economic sector with aims to increase productivity for the food and nutrition security. And that brings an end to this week's segment of our Entrepreneur of the Week. Be sure to join us again next segment. It's back to the studio.
All right, Cellah, thank you very much for the feedback. And that's it for this episode of World of Business. Until next week, from myself, Tafara Bendaguta, and the crew behind the scenes, it's back to business.
ZBC News, the real African voice.